Picture a pig's tooth, not just any pig, an extinct giant with tusks like handlebars, dead for over 1 million years. Now imagine that single tooth becoming the key that unlocks one of archaeology's most impossible discoveries. 7 small stone flakes, each smaller than a house key, found in a cornfield in Indonesia. And those flakes? They just proved that someone, or something, crossed 50 kilometers of open ocean 1.3 million years ago. 1 million years before we thought any human ancestor could even conceive of water as something crossable. On August 6, 2025, a team led by Budianto, Hakim, and Brumm published findings in Nature that shouldn't exist. Stone tools from Sulawesi, an island that has never, not once in geological history, been connected to mainland Asia. Not during the ice ages when sea levels dropped 120 meters. Not during any climatic extreme we know of. The Makassar Strait between Borneo and Sulawesi plunges 2,500 meters deep. Even at the absolute minimum, any hominin reaching Sulawesi had to cross 50 kilometers of shark-infested, crocodile-patrolled, current-swept ocean. And someone did it over 1 million years ago. These aren't sophisticated tools. They're basic flakes knocked off river pebbles, the kind Homo erectus was making everywhere. But one shows something remarkable. A Kumbewa flake, where someone struck a flake off the ventral surface of another flake, then carefully retouched the edge. That's not accident. That's intention. That's knowledge being applied to solve a problem. And whoever made it was standing on an island they could only have reached by crossing deep water. The dating is what makes this bulletproof. 2 completely independent methods converging on the same impossible age. First, paleomagnetism. The rocks containing these tools formed when Earth's magnetic field was reversed, pointing south instead of north. That reversal ended 773,000 years ago. So minimum age, older than that. But then comes the pig tooth found right beside the tools. Using uranium series electron spin resonance dating, basically measuring radiation damage accumulated over time, that tooth clocks in at 1.26 million years, plus or minus 220,000 years. 2 different physical principles, 2 different measurement techniques. Same conclusion, these tools are at least 1.04 million years old, possibly as old as 1.48 million. Before we go further, let's be clear about what this means. The Wallace line isn't just some arbitrary boundary drawn on a map. It's a biological firewall that's existed for 50 million years. West of the line, Asian animals. Tigers, rhinos, orangutans. East of the line, a completely different world. Marsupials, birds of paradise, and creatures found nowhere else on Earth. No mammal bigger than a rat ever crossed that line naturally. Until now. Sulawesi sits firmly on the wrong side of that line. It's Wallacea, the collection of islands that have always been islands, formed from volcanic activity and tectonic collision, never once connected to any continent. For a terrestrial mammal to reach Sulawesi is like a deer somehow appearing in Hawaii. It doesn't happen. It can't happen, except it did. So who were these impossible mariners? Here's where it gets frustrating. No bones, no teeth, no skull fragments. Just 7 stone flakes as evidence that someone was there. The smart money's on Homo erectus. They were on Java by 1.6 million years ago. They made similar tools, and the timing fits. But think about what that means. Homo erectus had a brain 2/3 the size of ours. Their technology barely changed for over 1 million years. The scientific consensus has always been that they lacked abstract thinking, couldn't plan beyond the immediate future, certainly couldn't conceive of land existing beyond the horizon. Yet there they were, on an island that required crossing 50 kilometers of open ocean. The researchers favor accidental rafting. Picture this, a small group of Homo erectus foraging along a riverbank in Borneo. Maybe it's monsoon season. Flash flood hits. The whole riverbank breaks loose. Trees, vegetation, soil, everything swept out to sea in a massive natural raft. Our terrified hominins cling to this floating island of debris as currents carry them east. Most die, but somehow, impossibly, A few survive long enough to wash up on an unknown shore. Sulawesi. Accidental colonization. Nature's lottery ticket. 1 in a million odds. But wait, think about this critically. A viable founding population needs at least 20 individuals to avoid immediate genetic collapse. 20 hominins all happening to be on the same vegetation mat? All surviving days at sea without fresh water? All making it to the same beach? The probability math gets uncomfortable fast. Some researchers are whispering about intentional crossings. Not boats exactly, but maybe controlled use of floating logs. Maybe these erectus populations, living along Southeast Asian coasts for hundreds of thousands of years, had developed a relationship with water we never credited them with. The Lombok Strait between Bali and Lombok is only 35 kilometers wide, but it's always been deep water. Yet somehow hominins also reached Flores by 1.02 million years ago, and Luzon in the Philippines by 700,000 years ago. That's a lot of lucky accidents, but here's what really bends your mind. Sulawesi isn't some tiny speck. It's 12 times bigger than Flores. It's a mini-continent with mountains, valleys, diverse ecosystems. If a population of Homo erectus got stranded there 1.3 million years ago and evolved in isolation for a million years, what would they become? We know what happened on Flores. Homo erectus shrank into Homo floresiensis, the 1-meter-tall hobbits that survived until 50,000 years ago. But Flores is small, resource-limited. Sulawesi had room for a completely different evolutionary experiment. Adam Brumm, who led the excavation, calls Sulawesi a wild card. His exact words, "If hominins were cut off on this huge and ecologically rich island for a million years, would they have undergone the same evolutionary changes as the Flores hobbits? Or would something totally different have happened? We don't know, because after these 7 flakes from 1.3 million years ago, the next evidence of hominins on Sulawesi jumps to 194,000 years ago. That's a gap of over a million years, a million years of total silence. Either they died out, or we haven't found them yet, or, and this is where it gets speculative, they evolved into something so unexpected we wouldn't recognize their tools as tools. The weaknesses in this study need addressing. 7 artifacts, that's it. 7. From one small excavation in one cornfield. The researchers themselves note these tools were in secondary deposition, meaning they'd been moved by the river from their original location. They could be even older than the layer they were found in, or they could have washed in from somewhere else entirely, though the geology suggests that's unlikely. The dating is solid, but it's based on a single pig tooth for the absolute age. One tooth setting the timeline for rewriting human evolution. And yet, the convergence of evidence is hard to dismiss. The paleomagnetic reversal, the uranium series dating, the fact that these are unquestionably human-made tools, the bulbs of percussion, the controlled flaking patterns, the deliberate retouch, the biogeographical impossibility of their location. It all points to the same uncomfortable conclusion. But zoom out for a moment. This isn't just about Sulawesi. In the last 5 years, we've discovered Homo luzonensis in the Philippines. We've pushed back the dates for hominins on Flores. We've found Denisovan DNA in modern populations, suggesting they were all over Southeast Asia. The old story, Homo erectus slowly walking out of Africa, hugging coastlines taking hundreds of thousands of years to spread, that story is dead. These new finds paint a picture of multiple species, multiple dispersals, and most shockingly, multiple ocean crossings happening over a million years ago. Maybe remember my Planet 9 video? How each new discovery was supposed to confirm the theory, but instead kept poking holes in it until the whole thing deflated? Same energy here, but reversed. Each new discovery in Southeast Asian archaeology was supposed to fit the narrative of Homo sapiens being special, the only species capable of symbolic thought, planning, and navigation. Instead, every new find pushes those capabilities deeper into the past, into the minds of creatures we thought were barely more than upright apes. The team's hunting for bones now. They know where to look, the same geological layers that preserve those stone tools. If they find a skull, even a fragment, We'll finally know who these ancient mariners were. Homo erectus? The ancestors of the hobbits? Something entirely new? The answer will either confirm our models of human evolution or shatter them completely. There's something unsettling about this discovery when you really think about it. We're talking about beings with smaller brains, simpler tools, and supposedly limited cognition, somehow achieving what shouldn't be possible. Crossing oceans, surviving on islands, potentially evolving into forms we haven't even discovered yet. It makes you wonder what else we're wrong about. What other impossible things did our ancestors achieve that we'll never find evidence for? Because time has erased everything but 7 small flakes of stone. The pig tooth that dated these tools came from Celebiosaurus hickereni, that extinct giant pig with the curved tusks. It lived alongside dwarf elephants, giant tortoises, and whatever hominins made those tools. An entire ecosystem that existed for over 1 million years, now reduced to fragments in museum drawers. Those 7 flakes of chert are letters from a world we can barely imagine, sent by someone whose face we'll never see, who crossed an ocean we said they couldn't cross, using methods we said they couldn't conceive. And if they could do that, if Homo erectus, or whoever they were, could accidentally or intentionally traverse 50 kilometers of open ocean 1.3 million years ago, then what else were they capable of? What other cognitive barriers that we've drawn around our ancestors are just artifacts of our own limited imagination? The real kicker isn't that they crossed the ocean. It's that they survived what came after. Landing on an unknown island. No way back. No idea what plants were edible, what animals were dangerous, where water sources were. They had to build an entire survival strategy from nothing. And they succeeded well enough to leave those 7 flakes for us to find. 1.3 million years ago, someone or something stood on the shores of Sulawesi, salt still drying on their skin, and knocked a flake off a river pebble. First tool made on an island that shouldn't have been reachable. First proof that the impossible was just another word for something that hadn't happened yet. Makes you wonder what impossible thing we'll discover next week that'll rewrite this story all over again.